All right, so good morning everybody, and thank you for coming to our presentation. Our presentation is about GradeMark, which, as you saw from the description in the materials, it's an online program to allow for feedback on students' papers. It's available through Turnitin. All three presenters this morning were part of the pilot program, so we've been using this for about a year and a half total. The program is now available to all faculty as of this past academic year. So I know my colleague and I have been really happy with the program. We teach legal writing at Penn State Law, so that's all we do day in and day out is critique students' writing. And so we have found it to be a huge time saver. It's greatly increased our efficiency, and we didn't have to lose the detailed feedback that we used to give to students using Word. So without any further to do, I'll show you what GradeMark is about just in terms of what it looks like, and then I will show you some features of GradeMark. My colleague Michelle Vollmer will show you some other features of GradeMark, and our other co-presenter Jennifer Zosh will give you some helpful tips and talk about her experience from students' perspectives of using GradeMark. So when you set up your GradeMark account through Turnitin, you'll be able to set up your course. You can call it whatever you like. You can have your students add themselves to the Turnitin account, just like you would you guys who use Turnitin for plagiarism purposes, or you can upload your students' papers yourself. Michelle and I, that's what we do. We upload our students' papers ourselves because we grade anonymously, so we have them handed in Word. We have our assistant then assign it a number, and then it gets uploaded into Turnitin. So we're grading them by numbers. When you set up your course, you also set up your assignment, and you can then set up all your settings for the assignment. So you can set up the due date. You can set up when you think you'll be done with your feedback so students can access it. You can also attach things like a rubric, an assessment rubric, so that you can customize each assignment based on what your purposes are for that particular assignment. So this is what the screen looks like. This is an assignment folder, and I set up just a test class, and this is a test assignment 1 and test assignment 2. So I'm going to show you what test assignment 2 looks like. First, though, also let me tell you a little bit about some of the, oops, I already have it open. Some of the features that GradeMark offers. There are what are called Quickmarks, and Quickmarks are really just quick click and drag comments. And I'll show you how to go about using those and how to set those up. There's also a place where you can upload an assessment rubric, so that's another feature that it offers. Another feature is a place where you can access to provide overall sort of comments, text comments, and you can type in perhaps just some overall notes with your thoughts about a student's paper or writing. Michelle and I use all three of those functions, and that's what we'll be showing you today. There are two other functions that we don't use for different reasons. One is called E-Rater, and you can set that up as one of your options in your assignment. And what that does is GradeMark will actually automatically go through every paper and input comments on grammatical and punctuation errors. We don't use that because you can delete the comments that are put in, and we find that it overcorrects for us. So E-Rater, for example, every time there's a citation sentence, it marks it as a sentence fragment. So every single citation in our students' papers, we end up having to delete that comment. So, but it is a feature, depending on what kind of papers you have your students hand in, that could be very useful. There's also a place where you can do voice comments, and you can do, I think it's about a 2-minute clip. Because we grade anonymously, we don't really use that, but if you have your students upload their own papers, instead of always having to type a comment, you can record a voice comment. So I always thought that's a feature that I would really like to use, but because of our anonymous grading, we really can't use it with the way we work with GradeMark. So we won't be talking about that one either. But I will show you Quickmarks. Michelle will teach you a little bit about the rubrics and the overall comments. Also, before I get into, I just want to show you a little bit about what this screen is. And this is one of the huge time savers that we found with GradeMark. In the past, what I used to do when I was giving students feedback is I would have the student paper open in Word. And then over all my years of teaching, I called it a macro sheet, but really what it was another Word document that had about 8 pages worth of comments that I tend to make paper after paper, year after year. And so I would have both of those documents up, and I would also then have my separate score sheet open. And I would have to toggle between 3 different documents, and I'd have to do a lot of cutting and pasting and cutting and pasting. And that's what took so long. Here, everything is on one screen, so you only have to have one thing open. So for example, here's my test paper that's open, and right from this one screen, these are the Quickmarks that are showed here in the blue little bubbles. If I want to get to my overall comments, I just go down to the bottom right here, and I can click, and there's my overall text comments. If I want to look at the rubric, so my score sheet, I just click there, and there's my rubric. If I want to see that larger, I can make it larger. So everything is there on the same page, so I'm not constantly going back and forth between a bunch of different documents. So that's part of what the time saver is. Okay, the Quickmarks. This is, I think, probably one of the most amazing features of GradeMark. And again, just a huge time saver, because now, instead of cutting and pasting all the time, all I'm doing is clicking and dragging. Simple as that. So what are Quickmarks, and what do they allow you to do? So first of all, one feature that is not really a Quickmark, but I use it in conjunction with Quickmarks, are text comments, okay? So you can see at the top where I typed in formatting, good job in following the formatting instructions. All instructions were followed, okay? If I want to insert my own text right in the body of the document, up top here, do you see the T? There's 2 little squares, like a comment bubble and a T. If I click on that, all I have to do then is click in the document wherever I want that text comment, and there it is. Simple as that. When I want out of it, I can just click back on the comment bubble, and now I'm back in the Quickmarks. I can also strike out. So if I wanted to say I didn't like this part of the heading, you just highlight it, you click delete. If I can find delete on here. Wait, there it is. Delete, and it's stricken out, okay, just like in Word. And then I can actually, if I wanted this comment to be right over what I struck out, I can just move it to wherever I want it on the paper with just a click of the button. Okay, so those are a couple of things that are related to Quickmarks, but aren't really what the Quickmarks are. What the Quickmarks are these things on this side of the page. There's a bunch of different kinds of Quickmarks that you can use, and you can customize them, and you can come up with brand new ones on your own. So there's a lot of cool things you can do. So the Quickmarks are set up in folders, so you can see these are all my different folders for my Quickmarks. Some of them are stock. When you open up GradeMark for the first time, there will be folders set up. So for example, if you went into format, that's a bunch of the stock comments. So for example, this one is for spelling. There's a spelling error. I use those kind of stock comments all the time. I wish I didn't have to, but I do. Okay, so I can click and drag that over to wherever I want where there's a spelling error. I can also attach it to a highlighted piece. So let's just say shotgun had been spelled wrong. I can highlight it, click on that comment, and it attaches to that particular word. And it shows up on the screen as a line that attaches to that. Okay? So you can highlight whatever you want, and you can color code your highlights. So this one's yellow, this one's purple, and you can color code as well. So there's the stock comments. We also have comments that you can upload yourself. So that 8-page document that I had with my comments that I make over and over again on student papers, I had my assistant just upload it right into this. So things like explanation. That's something that is particular to my course, and comments that I make about rule explanation in my students' papers. And so that's a folder that I set up with all of my comments in there. So for example, this one right here, oops, get out of that, scroll down a little bit. This comment right here, I highlighted a particular sentence. I thought it didn't match the exactly to the quote, so I can highlight that and I can go into my folder with my comments in it, and all I have to do is click on that particular comment and it attaches to that sentence. Okay, so I've customized my own and prepared my own Quickmarks. The other thing that you can do very easily is, let's say you have your stock comment that you make over and over again, but you just need to spell out a little bit more clearly what this particular student's problem was. You can customize your standard Quickmark by clicking on Edit, typing in your extra info, right? I can't type. Extra info, and you save it. And now it shows up with your comment and your bubble, with a little bubble next to it, and that shows that there's extra stuff. Mm-hmm.
I guess I have two questions, and
yes.
maybe naive, but so if a student submits this on GradeMark,
Mm-hmm.
they have the ability to read those comments only when they access GradeMark, or am I able to sort of save it in some format that they can access it as a Word document?
Yes, you can do it both ways. So if you have your student upload their own papers, they can look at it online. So they can come in and they can see all the color coding, they can hover over these comments, they can go down here and look at the overall comments and the rubrics, or down here, do you see that little printer?
Okay.
If you click on that, you can download it as a PDF. And you can save it as a PDF or print it out and hand it back in hard copy. You can save it as a PDF and email it back to them, and they can see it that way too. So you can have it both ways. Have your cake and eat it too. All right. So just very quickly, because I don't want to take up all my colleagues' time either. So I talked about the comments that you can upload yourself. I talked about how you can customize either the stock comments that come with GradeMark or your own comments. You also can come up with your own brand new comment. So for example, if there's nothing that I have in any of these folders that I can click and drag in, I can just set up my own comment by just simply clicking and typing and then saving. And then there's a new comment right like that, okay? So you can see that there's a variety of things you can do. You can attach the comments directly to text. You can just simply click and drag things over. You can move it around wherever you want, and that's how it'll show up on the student's screen or on the student's paper. If you see an extra bubble there, that just means I've customized the comment a little bit further. You can attach things even to spaces, and it doesn't have to be attached to a particular word or a text. And here's something that I just clicked and dragged in. Here's an example down here where I struck stuff out and then I attached a text comment to it because I just simply said it's unnecessary information, something like that. So I think that's everything with Quickmarks. So I'm going to go ahead and sit down and let Michelle show you rubrics and the overall comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to show you a couple other, let me move over here, a couple other features right here that I found to be professor time savers. So instead of opening up a Word document for each student, what's so nice about this one screen is that all of the papers are right here, and you just click a button to move to test paper 1 or student paper 1 without going, in and out, back into a folder, open up a new document. So for example, sometimes I decide to grade all of the citation, and I can click through 30 papers and quickly do the citation all at once. Sometimes when I'm grading one paper, I remember that a student said something similar. Maybe I'm worried about collaboration that they weren't supposed to do, or I know I just recently made a comment that's very similar, and I can go back in there and copy and paste that comment and quickly take it to another student's. Whereas before I had to close it down, look up the number, so this is really efficient for that purpose as well. And then the other point about a PDF that we found helpful was, I guess you could convert a PDF to Word, but there'd probably be a few problems with it. But we actually like that feature because when we gave our comments to our students in Word, they could kind of accept all changes, and it was kind of a nice way for them to fix and submit something as a writing sample. This way, it's harder for them. They have to go through and make the changes on their own document to correct a writing sample, and they learn more. So we found that to be super helpful. Okay. I think I'll talk about the overall comments first. I'm sorry, I went to the wrong, there we go. Let me go back to the other test paper where we actually have some. This is the nice thing, you can be anywhere in the document in any one of these three functions, and it will convert paper to paper, and it will save it automatically saves all of your comments. The only place that if you want to make a change to a text comment, you do need to be careful that you hit a save button there to save any changes you made. But other than that, it automatically keeps you don't have to keep saving or being worried that you're going to close down or the internet's going to go down and not save something. So I love that feature of it as well. We tend to use the overall comments to identify strengths and weaknesses. So for us, what we think, not only is this efficient for the professor, but it's efficient for the students. I'm looking forward to Jen's presentation on what the students actually think. Most of our students have told us they like it, but mostly they're not telling us very much. And we're mostly not asking them because we don't want to know that they don't like it, because it's so helpful to us. But our theory is, as to why it really works for them, is that it chunks their feedback for them. So in other words, in a Quickmarks situation, they get very detailed comments on a particular word choice, the way they phrased a sentence. In the overall comments, we can quickly summarize for them some major strengths, some major weaknesses in the big picture that they need to work on for their next assignment. We also use that to give a point score, because we don't use the rubric to give a point score, but you can use the rubric to give a point score and automatically calculate a score for you, which would be a huge time saver, I would think, for many teachers. I'll explain why that doesn't work for us. But I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there. But I think that's helpful to the students to have the detail and then to have the big picture. There is a word limit that I just recently found out for this comment section, because I tried to take a shortcut. I'm fortunate to have Nicole, who mostly loads our rubrics, and I use her rubrics. I decided to grade a very short assignment that we did this week, and I was going to use a word rubric. So I copy and pasted the word rubric into this comment section rather than taking the time to learn how to upload a rubric myself for the first time. Although it's really not that hard, but I was really that pressed for time. And it was fine, except that there was one student who was really off track, and I tried to add some set of comments in there, and so there is a word limit there. But mostly that probably won't come up. Okay, so now the rubric. Trying to see if we could.
If you click on the up top.
Okay.
That right there.
Right there. Okay.
There you go.
Excellent. So I'm going to attach it.
Oh wait.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Let me just see the screen, because you can make it bigger.
Let me not mess with that. Then I was trying to show them the comments on the bottom to help them.
Oh, the comments on the bottom. Oh.
Right.
I think. Oh, do you want to bring the rubrics to the top, like so it's a big screen, or were you trying to?
No,
okay.
When the numbers are up,
Right,
then
okay, I'm going to do that. Okay, there you go.
That might be a good idea to show them that other part too.
And then you just do that.
oh, hovering over it.
Just hovering over it, yeah.
Okay.
And then that'll bring it up so
Okay.
that you can see it in the big picture.
It's just different. I'm not sure why. And anyway, okay, so here it is. In case you forget. Now for us, I think we're using the same rubric so often that I pretty much know the numbers now, so I don't really need this. But sometimes it's really helpful, and you can scroll this bar up to show you more of the comments. But essentially, you can pick your 4 categories. So we have picked, I'll just show you, very good, competent, developing, and needs work. And we have described exactly what each of those mean. And you can have up to 50 criterion in this rubric, and we use all 50 of them. So that's why we have a problem with a point score. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that you really need the same point value to be attributed to each criterion to be able to use this to score your papers. And for us, there are some parts of this that are so detailed. There is one criterion that's probably worth 20 points for us, and we can't break that down, and we can't make this all the same. So it just didn't work. But most of us just have a paper beside us, and we're keeping the point score right here on the paper, so there still isn't the need for two screens, which is very nice. But essentially, this is a Word document that we can, let's see if we have that. I'm sorry, Nicole, how did you pull up that?
Right there.
Right there? All right, excellent. I think it's gonna come. So we give this to our students in Word so they can examine it in advance of the assignment, and then there's some magic that the administrator does that we could talk with you about after the presentation if you want, to convert this into a format that GradeMark recognizes. And anytime you want, you could click to this big view of it and see the big picture, but you can see that over here, the criterion have a subject matter. Not sure if I can move that screen over. But, so the students know the topic of the criterion, and then they know the categories that they've been graded on. And again, I think this helps them to chunk the information. For us, we used to put a lot of these comments into the Word document, in addition to the detailed documents, in addition to grammar, in addition to Blue Book, and it was very overwhelming for the students. So in this way, they have 3 places they can go, it chunks it for them, and they comprehend the information better when they take it in small chunks. So, in my opinion, that was very helpful. But that's all I wanted to say. So, thank you very much, and I'll welcome Jen up.
For any of you that are
No?
okay. For any of you that are considering, you can do a workaround for the criterion that if you have one that's worth 4 points and one that's worth 2 points, there are ways that you can do it. You basically just have extra 0 categories, but not if there's one with 20. That's not doable. So what I want to talk about is the student perspective. So I was part of this pilot program, and to be honest, I liked it. I kind of thought our students weren't going to like it. I thought that was I didn't think that they were going to overwhelmingly like it. Let's see. Okay, so I want to talk about the student perspective, and I think I have, oh, sorry, that started buzzing. I did nothing, so. The interference. Okay. So my students are probably a little bit different. I teach, so I'm at Penn State Brandywine, so we don't have graduate students or law students. We have, but we do have 4-year degree students. So I have students in their freshman year when they're taking their first college class and can't write a word, and I have them in their senior year as well. So I'm going to present to you data that I actually collected from my intro-level HDFS, Human Development and Family Studies and Psychology course. This is the data from about 43 students that I had collected. And the first thing I wanted to show you was some of their actual comments. I just gave them free range. What did you like? What did you not like? What were your take-home points? And I want to prove to you that I did not put these in did not just hand select them. You'll see that some students decided to give me feedback that had absolutely nothing to do with GradeMark, but this is pure feedback from the students. And in general, well, you can't see the black here, but okay. So it says, I like the easy access to all of my grades and adds up all of your points. It's easy to see and understand. It's about the same. Paper grading just seems more personal. And I can understand from a student perspective that when you see my chicken scratch, you know that I sat there, I circled stuff. I can get from their perspective that it feels a little bit more personal. And frankly, feels more impersonal this way for me too. But in general, most of them liked it. It made my life easier, saved paper. I'll just read it. It's really clear up here. So I prefer it because a lot of professors don't let you keep the feedback they give you on your paper, and this way you can reference it online whenever you want. Really didn't matter. Some of them are now having used it in high school. So those are the students who really, this person said, I've used it before in high school, and it's honestly just so much easier to manage and handle. It's easy to understand and more useful than paper grading. I didn't have any problems with it. Easier than paper grading. I personally liked it. I have no preference. Some really loved it. Other people, yes, no. one student said that the feedback was easy to understand and it's nice having a portfolio to see all of your past work throughout the class, which, you know, he is my dream student who actually goes back and looks at stuff from a month ago to get a lesson from it. But it was interesting for me to see that and to see that at least a few people are doing that. Liked it a lot. It was fine. I liked it. You know, one of the things that I liked about it is that it's stamped when something is submitted. So there's none of this, oh, well, I was sick and my car broke down and I couldn't come to class that day, so can't you just accept it? It's online. You have no excuses. So that was really one of the great things for me. And that the grades are accessible really easily. So if they give me a paper, like I have a gigantic stack of papers waiting for me right now, my digital stack of papers, that I'll be able to do tomorrow, and my students will be able to access that before I see them again in class. So honestly, it was all right. I didn't really like it or dislike it. Okay, really didn't bother me. Liked it. I disliked it because technology isn't always reliable, and that's one thing that I would just kind of caution you depending on your student population. We have a lot of first-generation college students and students who don't have a lot of money, so not everyone has the internet at home. Not everyone has reliable technology, or they might have a single computer at home that's shared among every member of their family. So that's just one thing to kind of keep in mind depending on your student population. Liked it. Yeah, this person said it's much easier for me to see the mistake on paper than highlighted online, and I think that's going to be a personal kind of thing. It's that transition that we've all had to make, reading things digitally versus on paper. Feedback is given quickly. Like the use of less paper. And then this last person, and I literally said to them, what do you like about GradeMark? And she responds that she learned a lot about kids in my class and will never forget all the things I told her to do with newborns, including sticking out your tongue. I'm like, what does this have to do with GradeMark? But I swear, this is really the feedback that they gave me. So you never know what's going to stick. But so then I wanted to get this kind of independent feedback, but it's going to be the students who maybe like it, don't like it, maybe they're less likely to give me these kinds of feedback. So I also get a couple questions. There's about 9 or 10 questions that I gave and asked them to rank it on a 1 to 10 scale. The first 3 questions are about the overall process to Turnitin, because most of them are fine with it. Some of them still have trouble, but I wanted to see how are they feeling about it. And then GradeMark Specific. So higher number's good, lower number bad across this. So ease of enrolling in a course, most people say totally fine, easy, got it. Ease of submitting a paper, pretty good, got it, which is good considering I do still get emails like I can't figure out how to do this. Ease of getting the grade and the feedback, they all said that it was a very easy process for them. But what I was really interested in too was, well, what's their preference here? Are we seeing that there's some people who, is this kind of a bimodal thing where there's, half the class loves it and half the class hates it? And in terms of their preference, prefer papers on the left and prefer online is on the right. And the vast majority of people are preferring online grading, which I honestly was really surprised at. I thought that they were going to be a lot more reluctant to adopt this kind of technology. I asked them to rate the quality of the feedback, and this was all anonymous, so they could give me a 1 and I wouldn't know who it was. In general, they thought that the quality was pretty good. This was really interesting too, because one of the cool things about GradeMark that we didn't get to mention is that you can actually look to see if your students have viewed your feedback. So you can actually at least see if they clicked on it. That's something, which we don't get when you turn back the paper. You have no idea. Is it just, when you walk past the trash can and you're like, are you kidding me? But we can at least here see if they themselves rank the likelihood of them looking at feedback.
Can I ask you a question about the prior?
Yeah, of course.
Do you know if they were talking about the quality of the feedback that you were providing substantively, or like that 3 types of feedback that they get through?
I think it was mostly me. So when I do it, I use it a little. I don't use the the text comments. I use like the overall one. I tend to just write a paragraph on the bottom of their paper, because for me, I think that makes them look at it more, because it's hard for them to click apparently. Because my intro students, there's a lot to navigate here. So I think this also is partly Turnitin and partly me, right? So it's partly, can you see the comments and the feedback that I'm giving you? And I could be giving really crappy feedback. So this is kind of a combination. So that's why I asked the other questions about which do you prefer and kind of do you think you're actually going to look at the feedback or are you not, that kind of thing. Right? Because I could give them really bad feedback. I do use the ETS, that automatic grammar checker thing. I just give them the disclaimer. I have too many students to go through to delete the comments that aren't right. So I said, look, they're not all going to be perfect, but if you see that it's picking up a lot, because it picks up spelling errors, word fragments, you need to work with the writing studio. Like it's not super detailed enough, it's not necessarily 100% accurate, but they get If, the title says word fragment, they know that's not a problem. But if every sentence is highlighting stuff, then that's an issue. But again, for an intro level class, it's helpful for them to at least see it. And I actually asked them, and they said that they actually did enjoy, like not enjoy, but they did, pick up on the fact that some of the writing was not up to par. So, again, this could change if my feedback just said this paper stinks. I'm guessing this would look a little different. But it means that at least I think that they're starting to pull in what I'm trying to tell them. Yeah, in terms of the likelihood of looking at feedback, most of them said, yeah, I'm really likely to look at it. And I'm going to give you some other data to suggest that they're maybe not quite as good as they think they are. Ease of understanding the rubric. They were a little less happy with. Partly, I think, because I'm a very point-based person, so every point they know where it's coming. So for me, the rubric is great because I say, look, this thing's worth 2 points. Here's the number of points that you got. I think that they just have this natural, they don't really like to look at that. So I think this is more about them than me. But again, the rubric is it's nice and simple, and you can put in as much detail as you want. So mine's very detailed, like the intro paragraph is worth 3 points. And you get 3 points, and underneath I can write and say, you told me what you're going to be talking about, introduced this piece of evidence and this third criterion. And if I give them 2 points, you didn't give me these 3 things. So they can easily go through point by point. To go back to the grammatical feedback, most of them were okay with it. So it's not like they all said, no, that was a gigantic waste of time. And the ease of understanding the feedback in general was also overwhelmingly positive. So that also I was a little bit surprised at, simply because even for me, and I agree that this is a really efficient process, but there's a lot of clicking, right? There's a lot of switching here, going to this thing, getting this, clicking into the Quickmarks, then clicking into the text comments, then going into the rubric, going back to, so there's a lot of that. But it seems like students aren't struggling with that even when they go in to get their feedback themselves. So overwhelmingly, I was surprised. This is just their overall scores. So you'll see that in general, on the 10-point scale, we're above a 7.5 in all aspects. I then wanted to know, in terms of the feedback, whether or not they're actually going to view it, because we all have that. Like, we all know the frustration of grading, and then the students don't even open up the file or look at the paper. So here I looked at the percentage of students who actually viewed the feedback I give them on a paper that they write throughout the entire course. So it's, for my class, it's split into different periods of development. So 55% of people looked at the feedback I gave them on their intro page. Prenatal, we got up to about 70%, and we stayed kind of above that until you got to the last paragraph, which was the last part. So they have, they don't have anything to get from looking at it, so less than 20% of them did. So overall, we were at about 52% of all of my feedback was actually even opened, which is disheartening, but probably on par with what they do with paper. And I'd be interested to see how this changes. I haven't looked at the data yet for my upper level class to see if they're better at this. My approach, not looking at the numbers, but just kind of eyeballing it, says that the seniors are better at this because it's a little bit more high stakes. It's not a gen ed class then. This is also a gen ed class. So you have slightly, probably less intrinsic motivation maybe. And it could also, part of it, also I think why the numbers are depressed is that if you got a 9 out of 9, you're less likely to go click on it, even though I tell them to. Right, so if you got all the full points, you're approaching the assignment, right, you're less likely to go and click to see what I've said. So it's just kind of something to think about in terms of what you want to get through to your students, and ways that you might be able to promote them actually looking at it. That's kind of a big challenge. So my final thoughts, students were overwhelmingly positive. I had a couple pros and cons. My pros is, again, that it logs the day and time, so we're down in the southeastern part of the state, and out of my first 8 class meetings, we canceled 5 of them because of snow. So here I could actually still have them submit work, and I can say, you submitted it on time or you didn't. There's no kind of excuses here. And the grading is really quick. I just click down, 21133, update grade, goes up, and it's done. Cons, some of my students do have trouble with technology. Just this week I had to try to explain the difference between a .doc file and a .wpm file, or whatever it was, some other file format. So my students aren't 100% all there yet, so just something to keep in mind. I really enjoy a half a point. Like if I have a 10-point assignment, sometimes the thing is worth 9.5 points, and we don't really have the ability to put in a half a point. Neither on not on the rubric, and not even if you type it in at the top. So you can, one of the nice things is you can use the rubric and students can see it, but like say a student turns in an assignment late, they can see the rubric, what they got, but then up on the right-hand side where the grade goes, you can type in what they actually got on that because it was late. So there's different ways that you can use it, but no half points, which is a bummer for me. It's not truly integrated with Angel Gradebook, so I now have to, there's an export option, which I find to be a gigantic pain in the butt, because if students don't register with their Penn State email, which a lot of them don't if they're coming in from high school or just don't know how to do it, they don't always do that, even though I tell them to. So then I have to try to figure out who's who based off of, kittycat13@hotmail.com. So when you export it, you have to go through and it comes as like one large file, and you have to do the tab delineated import. It's a pain. So honestly, I just look at the screen. I have the screen on one side and my Angel Gradebook on the other, alphabetize on here, enter the grades that way. So it's a little bit more work in that regard. However, the amount of time it saves me making comments, typing stuff out, it's still much, much better. Yeah.
You do know that you could click on the dashboard and get everybody's grade and print the sheet out. That'll give you both in percent and points.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just print that sheet to have it when I go into Angel to put the grades in.
Yeah, I try not to print stuff. Yeah, but no, and I have two screens, but exactly, that's the way to do it. Exactly, so that way you're not, yeah, because that's the one, I tried the exporting thing, I got really good direction, it was too much.
Didn't even try.
Okay, yeah, it's not, for me it was not working. So that was one thing to kind of, that was an issue that I had. And there's no offline grading, which is for me one of the biggest problems. I keep getting all of these emails from Turnitin that says, grade on your iPad, but right now Penn State doesn't have the functionality to be able to do that.
There's a way to vote for.
Right. Yeah, so there's a way to bug them, but yet we're just not there yet. So that's something that I know you had shared with me ways that you can kind of get that issue up on Turnitin's kind of radar, so that way that might happen. Because that is one problem. I was on a train, and Amtrak's Wi-Fi didn't work that day, and then all of these 3 hours that I had to grade, I had nothing to grade. So that was a frustrating part for me. And if you do decide to use it, just a couple other things that my students have told me. One is you need to warn them it can sometimes take a minute to load. The load time here isn't always perfect, even on a really strong internet connection, so it takes 10 whole seconds. We can't wait 10 seconds. But it takes 10 seconds for the paper to come up and load and then to save. There's just a little bit of that stuff. And my students who are really in the instantaneous framework said, well, I clicked on it, nothing showed up. So you have to wait 5 seconds for the stuff to load. So you just want to warn them, because one of my students... Mm-hmm. Well, she just said, you never left me any comments. I said, yes, I did. And she's like, well... And then she told me, she was in my class the next semester, and she's like, I'm just making a public service announcement that you should wait for 10 seconds for the comments to load, because all last semester I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. So,
So the iPad doesn't work.
mm-mm. Yeah. So the iPad grading does not. I honestly, for me, I would think it depends on the assignments that you do. For me, I think it would be hard a little bit because there is so much clicking and typing for me, the way I do it, and I use the text comments that you put directly on the page just because it's in their face and they see it, and the less work I make them do to see the comments, the higher the likelihood that they're actually going to look at them. So if you think about trying to have a little iPad screen, paper on this side, rubric on the other, clicking here, dragging this over here, switching functionality, for me it's easier on a laptop in general, but it depends on the assignment.
Like you said.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that option would be wonderful. And especially for I even have them do low stakes assignments, so they have their big papers on here that are worth 50 points, and then I have them do some low stakes, like 4-pointers, and that's really easy. Like if you did it and it's kind of reasonable, you got full. That would be a super easy one to grade in that. So yes, hopefully one day we will have that.
Can you color code the Quickmarks? Because it would be nice for pattern recognition.
Mhm.
If there are certain ones, can you go in there?
Hey,
I want all these types of errors to be beige.
That's a good question. They have, I think, 4 colors that you can pick from. And when you go in to edit the comments, you can pick whatever color you want. I don't know if there's any way to program it in that anytime you make comments from this folder, it's purple. And I don't know that.
I don't know that either.
I now teach an upper level course, and I'll stand up just so I'm good. But I teach an upper level course now, and so I do have my students upload their own papers, and so they can go in right to GradeMark and hover over the comments, and they can see the color.
Mm-hmm.
For our first year law students, because we do the anonymous grading, and we have to upload their papers, they can't go in and look online at their papers. We have to do the PDF version. and then we have to print it out, and we don't have the color printer to do that. So I don't care what color I use for them because it's going to come out black and white anyway. So, you know, I don't know if you can pre-program it in. I don't know that you can, but there's 4 colors to pick from, and if you just memorize what colors you want for white, it would be a real easy click when you go in and edit your Quickmark and just change the color of the highlight. So
But you're not reading them anyway.
Right, and it's hard. I think that it is, and I think, you know, that this was my first semester of this data is for my first semester of using it the entire semester, and I do think part of it, if I had had more time, but you know, none of us have time, I was going to try to go through and see of the people who got 9 points, out of 9 points, are they primarily the ones who didn't look at it? I eyeballed it, and it was a little bit of both, right? So there were people that got 4 points out of 9 and didn't look at it, and then there were people who got 9 points out of 9 and didn't look at it. But I think it's pretty equivalent, and maybe even a little bit better than paper, right? Because they lose it, yeah.
I will say, you know, when I first started using this, I found that when my students, and I do first year nursing students, so this is their first attempt at scientific paper,
Yeah.
if you will. So it's, the APA comments,
Yes.
and all that, like outrageous. Well, it's pathophysiology. Hasn't changed in 100 years. But I found that when I hand graded, I would find myself rewriting their papers. This sentence is too long, cut it back to this. I would spend 4 or 5 hours per paper. And then when it was done, I look at it and say, I literally rewrote your paper. Only to find when they were stacked up, nobody even came to pick them up.
I know.
But with this, I find that especially when you're looking at, I do use DETA stuff just for the sake of
me too. Just point
run
it out.
through, take a look, and then something like citation needed.
Yeah,
I don't
me
have
too.
to go through APA says, just boom. And
Just
then the
boom over,
whole thing.
exactly.
It even takes them to go to a website.
Yep.
That tells you right from APA where your issue was. So from that perspective, now it takes me maybe an hour.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
think they still, and I do my overall comments as I go along.
Right. I know,
So
and that's,
I think that saves so much.
and you can leave the detailed comments of, you know, overall this was a good, like if I have to drag over, I used to write on every paper, go to the writing studio, your writing makes it hard for me to understand what you're trying to tell me. Now I just drag it over and I've just saved myself a lot of time.
Since my handwriting was never that great, so I really appreciate that.
I never did get to read what I wrote anyway, but
So yeah, overall, I would give it between a B+ and an A-. That's, again, why I need the half points, because I'm always in between.
Are there any plans? Are there any plans to integrate with Angel? Is that a thing?
There are, they're testing it now,
But Angel's changing, right?
yeah,
So-
it's changing. When, well, several things could happen when they go to Blackboard, but inline grading will probably be integrated into Blackboard one way or another.
Yeah.
And hopefully the Angel integration will come. There's still some final testing we have to do, and we have to set up a timeline to it.
Yeah, but if
It's been working pretty well.
and if just as a side note too, those text comments when you can write on the paper, as long as you have your students submit everything double spaced, it perfectly fits in between the lines.
Yeah, double space is key. If it's not, the comment bubbles get in the way of it.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming.